8 spine-chilling tales of haunting. We unpacked, but the sinister presence was already here. The Johnson family made the kind of move that unraveled into a spine-chilling nightmare. Mike Johnson, worn from endless night shifts, thought Maplewood, a sleepy town with deceptive smiles, would be their safe haven. But as they unpacked, it felt more like they were summoning something. The house loomed quietly, an entity in itself, breathing unsettling whispers into the darkness. Emily, his skeptical wife, brushed his fears aside, but every creak echoed a sinister "stay away." On their first night, an icy chill fell over them. The wind howled, but inside was worse laughter, like children playing outside when all should be still. Mike bolted upright, heart racing. "Did you hear that?" he hissed. Emily rolled over, eyes still closed. "It's just the wind," she sighed dismissively. Days faded into nights thick with tension. Shadows danced in the corners of rooms, creeping closer when Mike stared too long. The children, meanwhile, found solace in a nearby playground, abandoned yet alluring, its swings swaying with their laughter. But that laughter echoed through Mike's mind like nails against glass. Every giggle took on a sinister cadence. One evening, Mike succumbed to his growing paranoia and called an old friend. "You won't believe what's happening," he whispered, biting his nails. "This place isn't what it seems." "You heard about the neighbor, right?" His friend replied, voice barely a whisper. "Disappeared. No one talks about it." Mike's heart plummeted. Had they stepped into a trap? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The relentless grip of dread intensified. Furniture shifted when no one was watching. Doors creaked open by unseen hands, and their kids began speaking of whimsical friends that lived in the walls. "They told me about the playground," Ben exclaimed innocently, but Mike felt bile rise in his throat. What had they unearthed? The final straw broke one night when shadows merged into a single mass on the wall, something alive. As they huddled together, Mike's grip tightened around Emily, a silent pact against the unknown. Then, through the thick, tense silence, came a voice, soft yet chilling, echoing in their minds. "You should never have come here." Panic erupted. These were whispers of resignation and rage, harboring truths of the land they had unknowingly desecrated. Standing at the brink, Mike realized escape wouldn't come easily. What awaited them in the depths of Maplewood was a truth darker and far more terrifying than they could handle. As the lights flickered, plunging them into chaos, they faced the mirror of their own fears. Would they reclaim their home, or succumb to the sinister grip of this seemingly peaceful town? The air crackled with tension as Mike, Emily, and the children tried to breathe, the oppressive silence amplifying every stutter of the house. Shadows seemed to pulse against the walls, alive and aware. "What do we do?" Emily's voice wavered, mingling fear and disbelief as she turned to Mike, desperation etched on her features. "Maybe we should leave," Mike whispered, but deep inside he knew it was too late. The house had rooted itself in their very souls. Outside, the wind howled again, louder and more menacing, the chaos echoing their internal turmoil. In the following days, Mike found himself unable to find solace. The children grew strangely attached to the old playground, as though dragged by invisible chains. "Mom, the friends are coming to play," Lucy would shout, clapping her hands in delight. But Mike could only feel the cold knot of dread tightening in his stomach. Once he stopped Ben on the way back from the playground. "Who are these friends?" he asked, trying to mask his tremors. Ben frowned, uncertainty flickering in his innocent eyes. "They like playing. They told me things," he said softly. "Told me secrets." Secrets? What secrets could a child conjure with whispers dripping like poison? That night, as the family gathered in the living room, Mike proposed a movie as a distraction. Laughter hung in the air, but it was a fragile veneer. As scenes flickered across the screen, an uneasy feeling wormed its way into Mike's mind. He could feel it, the house watching, waiting. It seeped into their laughter like a slow poison. Suddenly, the power flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. "Dad?" Lucy's voice trembled in the pitch black. A faint glimmer of moonlight poured through the window, casting an eerie glow. That S when Mike heard it again, the laughter. Faint but unmistakable, rising from outside the house, mingling with the rustle of branches scratching against the windows. Emily's hand gripped his arm. "You hear that, right?" Mike nodded, heart pounding. The laughter morphed into distant echoes, almost mocking. It was not the children's joy he heard, but something far more sinister, as if the very playground itself was alive, consumed with delightful malice at the back of his mind. He recalled his friend's words, the neighbor who vanished, leaving nothing but hushed whispers behind. Was Maplewood a haven or a graveyard for those who dared to dwell? "Let us go see," Mike said suddenly, battling against paralyzing fear. They all knew, deep down, that they were connected to whatever dark horror had taken hold of this town. Grabbing a flashlight, he led his family outside, the moonlit path illuminating their way like a twisted guide. The churning fog clung to their legs as they approached the abandoned playground. The creaking swings swayed, yet it was eerily still. Ben darted forward. "Look," he yelled, pointing toward the rusted slide that loomed like a dagger against the night. Darkness shifted around it, a flicker of movement. Then, a figure emerged, a child, pale and translucent, with hollow eyes filled with secrets. "Come play with us," it beckoned, voice a haunting echo that chilled Mike to the bone. Every fiber of his being screamed for him to turn back. What had they awakened? What horrors were waiting to break free? And just as the night air thickened with dread, the playground erupted into raucous laughter again, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Mike's heart raced. What were they really drawn to? What lay hidden beneath the surface of Maplewood, waiting for the unsuspecting? As the blanket of darkness enveloped them, they stood there, caught between fear and desperation, wondering if they would ever escape or if they were about to become part of its haunting legend. What awaited them in that playground should have stayed buried, but they had crossed the threshold. Would they be consumed by the very darkness they dared to confront? The laughter rang out again, echoing through the chilling air like the toll of a bell, summoning them closer. Mike froze, his breath caught in his throat. The pale figure of the child stood just beyond the swing set, a tiny silhouette against the hazy moon. It extended a hand, fingers twitching as if inviting them into a world where shadows dripped with darkness. "Ben." Mike's voice cracked, but his son was already captivated, his little feet shifting toward the beckoning phantom. He heard Emily gasp, her grip tightening on his arm as they exchanged a frantic glance. The thrill of fear surged in Mike's veins. "Stop," he shouted, rushing forward to catch Ben's shoulder. "We need to go back." But the child in front of them giggled, a sound that danced between innocent delight and something much worse. "You don't want to leave, do you?" it asked, each word slithering through the darkness like a snake. The air felt heavy, as if the fog had moved to encase them, wrapping around their legs like icy chains. "Who are you?" Mike demanded, fighting against the dread that gripped him. "I'm just a friend," it replied, tilting its head unnaturally. "I'm just waiting for you, waiting to play." The word turned to ash in his mouth. Distant memories of laughter and games flared within him. But this was a game played in nightmares, a trap cloaked in childlike innocence. He remembered stories of the neighbors who went missing. Had they wandered here, drawn in by that same laughter, trapped by promises that were never real? "Lucy, Ben, come back," Emily cried, her voice frantic as she stepped closer to Mike, eyes wide with panic. "We have to go." The boy turned back to them, his hollow eyes gleaming with a mix of mischief and sorrow. "You'll come play one to you?" Suddenly, the swings began to creak louder, moving by themselves as though a hidden force was at play. The sound grew erratic, a cacophony that merged with the laughter swirling in the air. The fog thickened, curling around their ankles, obscuring their escape like a malevolent cloak. "Now!" Mike screamed, grabbing Ben's hand tightly. But the boy resisted, the spell of the playground locking him in place. "We need to go. Daddy, I want to stay. They're my friends." He wrenched free, and Mike lunged forward, adrenaline roaring through him as he pulled Ben toward the path, tugging at his son's small hand. And just like that, the laughter cut off, replaced by a low, menacing hum that resonated deep in Micah's bones. The figure remained, watching as the ground beneath them began to tremble, the playground shifting, the earth opening like a mouth, hungry. Shadows lurched, grasping at their feet, trying to pull them down into the abyss. "Stay just a little longer," came the echoing plea, fading into a symphony of malice. In a moment of sheer instinct, Mike yanked Ben into his arms, sprinting toward the house. They could not stay here, not for a second longer. The whispers turned into shrieks, skirting the edges of their minds, demanding attention. Emily followed closely, glancing back, terror etched on her face. The playground loomed behind them, monstrous and alive, shifting out of sight as they ran. Each footfall felt heavier, each breath more labored, as the laughter transformed into screams that grew louder, desperate, painful. Once they reached the front porch, Mike slammed the door shut behind them, panting. They could hear it now, a drumming at the door, a sound like laughter warped by rage, hammering into the wood. With shaking hands, he locked the door. "Are we safe now?" Lucy whispered, her small voice trembling with an unnameable fear. Mike turned, panic knotting in his stomach. I don't know." Then, from the darkened corners of the living room, shadows began to creep closer, embracing the walls, hungry and cold. Mike's skin prickled with dread, knowing deep down that there was nowhere to hide from the horror that had taken root within their lives. And with that, a shiver coursed through him, the realization dawning: what if the darkness was not just outside, but had woven itself into the very fabric of their family? And somewhere, deep in the house, he could still hear the laughter pulling them closer to a fate they had only begun to uncover. What would happen when the shadows finally reached them? Would they remain inside forever? Or would they too become part of Maplewood's chilling history? The laughter stopped, but its echoes lingered in the air, wrapping around Mike like a suffocating shroud. Each tick of the clock sounded like a footstep in the silence of their home, amplifying the dread clawing at his insides. He glanced at Emily, her eyes wide with terror. "What was that?" she whispered, as if saying it too loudly would invite danger back. "Get the kids," he barked, his voice trembling. Lucy stood frozen, clutching her doll as if it could guard her against unseen horrors. "Lucy, come here," Mike said, urgency flooding his voice. Not waiting for her to respond, he dashed towards the kitchen, where the knives gleamed ominously on the countertop. Emily followed, holding Ben tightly against her side. "It's not over, is it?" she asked, her breath quickening. "No, we have to arm ourselves. We can't let it in," he replied, grabbing a bread knife. The drumming at the door intensified, the laughter now morphing into sobs, the cries of children echoing in a warped lullaby. Shadows twisted on the walls, stretching and contorting, as if trying to reach them. Mike's heartbeat thundered in his ears as he glanced towards the door. The wood cracked under the pressure, dark tendrils snaking through the gaps. "Stay back," he shouted, positioning himself in front of his family. Panic surged as the door quivered, seeming to breathe with the growing intensity of the cries. "Daddy!" Lucy's voice was a whisper, fear spilling from her eyes. "What's happening?" "It's just a trick," he said, his voice wavering as he fought to keep his own fear at bay. "Just keep close. We'll fight it." Suddenly, the noise outside shifted again, transforming into a whisper so soft it felt like a caress against his skin. "Let us in, we just want to play." The voice slithered through the cracks, wrapping around his mind like a serpent. Emily shook her head, gripping Ben tighter. "No, we can't open the door." She was trembling now, biting back tears. Yet the shadows at the door thickened, swirling like a storm as a low moan resonated from beneath the floorboards. It felt alive, pulsating with a hunger that matched the darkness creeping ever closer. "It's coming," Mike murmured, glancing down the hall towards the living room. Where should we go? Emily asked, her voice almost lost amid the cacophony. Back to the front, Mike said, resolve hardening in his chest. We need to see what it wants. He took a deep breath, weighing the risk, but they couldn't hide forever. Trembling, he led them to the front door, the air thick with dread as the shadows battered against it like a wild beast. He placed a hand on the doorknob, feeling the chill seep into his bones. On 3, he whispered, his heart racing. 1, 2, Daddy. Ben's shout echoed panic, pulling Mike's attention. The boy pointed, eyes wide. Look, a dark shape loomed at the window, eyes glinting like shards of glass. It grinned a chilling, twisted smile that didn't quite belong in the realm of reality. Mike's breath caught again, and the knife slipped from his grip, clattering loudly to the floor. Stay back, he yelled, stepping in front of his family. The figure raised a finger to its lips, shushing them. Before mouthing words he couldn't quite decipher words that felt like a call from the depths of a nightmare. Around them the shadows pulsed. It was rising, ready to claim what was still theirs. Let us leave, Emily cried, but Mike's thoughts raced. What if they ran straight into the playground? What if the laughter followed them, ensnaring them in a web of darkness? The whispers turned into laughter again, a mocking echo that promised playtime in a world beyond comprehension. It seemed to know their fears better than they did, lurking with anticipation and longing. Here we go, Mike breathed, turning to Emily. We need to open this door. Now. As they prepared to face the horror that awaited them, a single thought struck hard and true. Had they already lost everything before they even stepped outside? What lay behind that door might not be just menacing shadows, but a truth far worse than they could ever imagine. Would they choose to confront it, or would the allure of the darkness prove too strong? The door felt like ice under Mike's palm, and he hesitated, a wave of nausea washing over him. He could feel Emily's breath quickening beside him, her heartbeat matching his desperate thuds. The laughter morphed again, becoming a cacophony of cries, blurring the lines between mirth and despair. Now, he barked, twisting the knob with raw determination. The door flew open with a thunderous bang, revealing nothing but an empty porch. A stillness hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Breaths caught in their throats as the darkness pressed around them, daring them to step into the void beyond. Shadows danced at the edges of the light, flickering like fireflies before extinguishing completely. Daddy, I'm scared. Lucy lingered behind him, her small hand still gripping her doll tightly. Stay close, Mike urged, stepping outside. The wood creaked beneath his feet, the familiar sound now alien in the encroaching night. Emily followed, her eyes darting, panic bubbling beneath her skin. Don't look away, she whispered, clutching Ben against her bosom. We can't lose each other. Every instinct screamed at Mike to retreat, but he felt pulled forward as if the shadows were whispering his name, promising secrets and dark mysteries that only they could unlock. The laughter had stopped, replaced by the rustling of grass, the sighing of wind weaving through the trees. Something was out there. Get off the porch, he hissed through gritted teeth. Nerves strung tight, they made their way down the steps, stopping as they reached the lawn. A hidden playground of horrors. A flicker of movement caught Mike's eye, a flash at the edge of the yard. He felt it drawing him closer, as if the shadows were stitching themselves into a tapestry of entrapment. What was that? He muttered, squinting into the murky twilight. Just shadows, Emily said uneasily, her fear palpable in his chest. But Mike couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The air thickened, and a chill ran up his spine. Stay together. Whatever happens, don't let go of each other. Forcing his feet to move, his family followed, inching toward the darkness that felt alive, thrumming with energy. The laughter returned, echoing from nowhere, swarming around them like a swarm of bees, mocking and sweet. Suddenly, Ben screamed. Look, he pointed, eyes fixed on something swaying in the trees. A shape, barely visible, flitting between branches. A figure too small to be an adult, too big to be a mere figment of imagination. It vanished, leaving only the ghost of its presence. Did you see it? Mike rasped, fear piercing through his soul. No. Emily shook her head violently, as if ridding herself of a dream. Let us go inside. Now. Before Mike could respond, a deafening clap echoed overhead. He looked up, and dark clouds roiled, swallowing the moonlight. Raindrops began to fall, heavy and cold. But it wasn't the rain that made him shiver. It was the realization that the figure had not gone. It had merely stepped back into the shadows, waiting. Now what? Mike whispered, his grip on the knife tightening. Daddy! Look out! Lucy cried, pointing again. This time Mike turned and his blood ran cold. A horde of childlike figures appeared from the darkness. Their faces twisted in grins that teetered between innocent and sinister. They danced amongst the trees, inching closer with every beat of their little feet. None of this is real, Emily shouted, voice raw as she turned to run. We need to go back inside. But as they spun to flee, the laughter rose into the air, deafening their senses, vibrating through their bones. The shadows deepened, pulling them in. Mike felt his hold on reality slipping. Together, he yelled, as the darkness clawed at them, hungry and relentless. He took Emily's hand, holding on fiercely, but could see the glimmers of panic reflecting in her eyes. In the distance, the laughter changed again, becoming taunting. You can't hide, you can't escape, we're not going to fall for it, Mike shouted into the night, but even he could hear the tremor in his voice. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, everything went silent. The laughter stilled, the shadows paused. They stood on that chaotic lawn, breathless, waiting for the next move. The darkness loomed, and Mike knew deep down that whatever came next wouldn't be just a game. What do they want? Emily whispered desperately. In that moment, a piercing, cold voice broke through the stillness, directly behind them. You'll find out soon enough. Mike's heart raced, a new fear clawing at him. They had opened the door to something far more terrifying than they could have ever imagined. What awaited them in the shadows? The silence felt heavy, almost tangible. Mike's heart pounded against his ribcage like a trapped animal, wild and desperate. Emily's fingers were slick in his grip, trembling. Lucy pulled closer, burying her face in Mike's side, her doll forgotten in the chaos. You'll find out soon enough, the icy voice repeated, slithering around them. Mike turned slowly, dread pooling in his stomach. The porch behind them seemed to warp, disappearing into a wall of shadows. Whatever remained of their home had been swallowed by the night. Run, he yelled, less a command than a plea. They sprinted toward the yard's edge, driven by a fear that propelled them past reason. The childlike figures had vanished, but the echoes of their laughter hung in the air, intertwining with their fleeting breaths. Where do we go? Emily gasped, glancing over her shoulder. The dark was closing in, swallowing their escape. Just keep moving, Mike shouted, urging them forward. Panic began to rise as he felt the shadows reach out, thin tendrils grasping hungrily. Lucy stumbled, her grip slipping from Mike's hand. He spun around, terror seizing him at the thought. Lucy! But she didn't fall. Instead, she stood transfixed, staring at the trees. Her eyes widened, mouth agape, as if she could see something they couldn't. Lucy! Come back! He shouted, terror surging. The cold voice echoed again, now playful and mocking. You can't protect her. She belongs to us now. No. Mike lunged toward her, but a gust of wind pushed him back, a solid wall of air that held him in place. Emily screamed, feeling helpless as they were distanced from their daughter. In that brief moment of chaos, the world around them twisted. Shadows melded into the figures of children, their little faces gleeful as if witnessing a grand performance. From behind the trees, figures emerged, each child adorned in tattered clothes, stained with earth and something darker, something unholy. It's the game, one of them shouted, laughter spilling like water. Join us, run. Mike finally broke free from that invisible grip and beckoned Emily and Lucy to follow. As they sprinted, branches clawed at them like grasping hands. Emily turned, her expression terrified. We can't keep running forever. Keep going. Mike yelled, tears mixing with the rain that started to pour. The darkness thrummed around them, a living entity, breathing, pulsing. We need to find a way out. Lucy's giggling caught his ear, an unnerving sound amidst the chaos. He turned back. Stop it. We need to go. But Lucy was standing still, looking up at the creatures who had encircled her. They want to play, she said, her voice a sing-song lilt, eerily calm. No. Mike fought the urge to run to her, paralyzed, as dread tightened its grip around his throat. Let us play. A chorus of children's voices sang sweetly. Shadows stretched toward Lucy, wrapping around her like a warm embrace. What are you doing? Mike's voice cracked, desperation washing over him. Mommy! Daddy, come join us. Lucy's smile was radiant but empty, her eyes glazed. Lucy! Please! Emily cried, tears streaming down her face as she reached for her daughter. But it felt as if there were an invisible barrier separating them, thick as the night. The laughter grew, swelling into a deafening storm. Mike felt it crushing him, the weight suffocating. The children began to dance, twirling around Lucy, their laughter pealing with joy. Let her go! Mike screamed, but his voice was lost amidst the cacophony. And just like that, the shadows lunged, tendrils of darkness reaching out for the family. Together, Mike yelled, but a wall of darkness separated them. Help us! Lucy screamed, the innocence ripped from her face. Then everything went black in that suffocating silence that felt like death. Emerging from the void, Mike found himself alone, standing on the porch once again, the door still wide open. The lights inside flickered, a weak heartbeat in the oppressive stillness. Emily? Lucy? His voice trembled, uncertain. The house called to him, shadows writhing at the door. What if they had been right? What if they only just begun to play? As he stepped inside, the laughter began anew, echoing off the walls. It wasn't just a game anymore, it was a challenge. Find us if you can. Mike felt his skin crawl. They weren't gone. They were waiting for him. What would he find when he looked deeper into the darkness? The air inside the house was thick, each breath a struggle against the weight of dread pressing down on him. Mike stepped cautiously into the living room, heart racing as the familiar yet distorted surroundings loomed around him. The furniture was distorted, as if driven by some dark force that twisted reality. The pictures on the walls were covered in an eerie, shadowy fog, their images flickering in and out of focus. Emily? Lucy? He called again, but only the echo of his voice answered him, bouncing off the walls like the laughter of children outside. Shadows danced in the corners, their movements swift, mocking. A whisper curled through the air. Look closer, he felt an impulse, an insatiable need to find them. Moving toward the kitchen, he felt the floorboards creak under his feet, each step reverberating in the heavy silence. The table sat unnaturally still, a stark contrast to the chaos that had just erupted outside. Felt wrong. Everything felt wrong. In the back of his mind, the thought haunted him, had they ever truly been here? A flash of movement caught his eye, a flicker of red fabric. The doll. It lay on the floor, abandoned and forlorn. Mike's heart plummeted. Was it a sign, or was it simply a puppet of the darkness weaving around him? He picked it up, its eyes staring blankly at him, devoid of innocence. Lucy, he whispered, wiping away the dampness that clung to its limbs. With renewed resolve, he headed down the hallway, each step heavier than the last. The laughter grew louder, echoing through the walls, a symphony of childish glee layered over a trap of malice. Shadows whipped past him, teasing and luring, pulling the hairs on the back of his neck to stand at attention. Into the playroom a voice taunted, almost familiar. Stay together, Mike hissed, knowing that the darkness thrived when separated. As he reached the playroom door, it swung open without a touch, the hinges creaking ominously. Inside, the air shimmered with a sinister gleam. Toys littered the floor, their once bright colors now muted and grimy. There, in the center, stood Lucy. She was frozen in place, staring at a wall blanketed with shifting shadows. Lucy! he shouted, more desperate than ever. "Daddy!" she chimed, but it was a hollow echo, an off-key note in an unholy melody. The children from before swirled around her, their giggles twisting into something dark and vile. They weren't playing. They were ensnaring her. "Come play with us," they sang, their voices a chilling choir. Mike lunged forward, but just as before, an unseen force slammed against him, a wall of darkness that held him back. He yelled, rage and fear boiling inside. "Get away from her! We want to have fun," the shadows hissed back, deepening like a pit he could never escape. The laughter twisted into screams, filling the air with an agony that burrowed into his mind. "Lucy, don't listen to them," he shouted, struggling against the invisible barrier, straining to reach her. Before him, Lucia's expression changed, confusion mixing with agitation. She looked back at the shadows. "Can we play a game?" The innocence slipped away as she sank deeper into the illusion. "No!" Mike screamed, the desperation clawing at his throat. The children began to chant, their words spinning into a cyclone of fear. "Join us, or you will be lost forever." The walls pulsed and throbbed, the house alive at the sound of their twisted invitation, closing in. Each surge of shadows felt like a hand tightening around his throat, squeezing hope into nothing. "Find us if you can," the voice dripped like venom, echoing throughout the darkness. Suddenly, an idea struck him. If he could break their hold, if he could show Lucy it was a trick, it might give him a chance. "Lucy, remember our game? The one where we always win." It felt empty and feeble, but he had no choice. But as he fought through the shadows, a new voice slithered in, temptation lacing its syllables. "What if you can't find her again?" The thought hung heavy like a lead weight. No, he couldn't accept the thought. "Don't you dare think that. I will not lose you," he cried, charging forward, gripping the doll tightly. But then the shadows surged back, pushing him to the ground. Felt hopeless. He didn't just need to act. He needed to believe. The darkness shifted, swirling ominously, and as the lights flickered above, Mike realized in that moment something was watching. What awaited in the depths of the dark? What would he uncover? With only the shadows and the laughter surrounding him, he needed to delve deeper. "Don't you want to play?" Mike braced himself for the next move, knowing now the real game was only just beginning. The shadows pressed in tighter, a suffocating mantle that whispered promises in a language he couldn't quite decipher. Mike's heart raced, each pulse a drum beating against the silence. He felt exposed, as though the walls were eyes, hungry for his fear, relishing in his despair. "Find her!" A voice, eerily familiar, echoed in his mind. The laughter morphed into a ripple of delight, the kind children shared over secrets and discoveries. But this sound was sharp, jagged, twisted with malice. He forced himself to his feet, fighting against the weight of the darkness, every inch a battle. "Lucy!" he shouted again, desperation tearing through his voice. The chant of playful children wove into the air, an insidious spell that caught at the edges of his sanity. "Join us," they taunted, their voices insistent, growing louder. The shadows swirled around him, dancing in a macabre performance, and he could feel their tug, their allure. It was a sickening temptation, beckoning him with visions of joy that twisted into nightmares with gritted teeth. Mike pushed through, clenching the doll tightly, its glassy eyes glimmering in the fading light. "You're a trick. You're nothing. You have no power over me," he yelled, his voice resonating in the emptiness. The shadows shivered, recoiling momentarily, as if his defiance had stung them. But they rushed back, thicker now, a cacophony of whispers melding into an agonizing chorus. "You're alone," the words wrapped around him, saturating the air. "Here you belong," he staggered backward, the floor beneath him trembling like a heartbeat. The playroom morphed and twisted, walls leaning in, distorting attributes of reality. Deep breaths were hard to come by, his mind racing with thoughts of Emily. What had happened to her? Where was this darkness leading him? "Lucy, please," he begged, fear spilling into his chest like ice water. The echoes of her laugh twisted in his ears, and in the distance, he caught glimpses of an angry red glow behind the shifting silhouettes. "Join us for the game," the shadows whispered. Venom dripped with every syllable. He felt a longing, a flicker of hope that somehow, somewhere, Lucy was still waiting. "Don't lose yourself," he shouted, trying to drown out the tempest of voices. Then, as if the house itself responded, the walls began to pulse, thrumming like a living entity. The children's voices intermingled with something darker, something more primal. It was a sound that crawled into his bones, awakening every instinct to flee. He stumbled, gasping for air, and the doll flew from his grip as the shadows lashed out, pulling him toward the melding blackness. The air turned electric, a tense charge rippling as he watched the doll hit the floor and roll, stopping just at the threshold of the ominous playroom. "No!" he cried, lunging forward, weaving through the clouds of darkness. But before he could reclaim it, a hand materialized from the shadows. Small, delicate, but twisted and blackened. It gripped the doll, pulling it deeper into the dark, beyond Mike's desperate reach. "Lucy!" he screamed, panic surging. The laughter shifted, becoming shrill, teasing, and echoing the flutter of children's delight mixed with something sinister. "Play with us or lose her forever." The darkness thickened, wrapping around him like a shroud, and just as he fought against it, a pause settled, an unbearable quiet engulfing the chaos. What was coming? His instincts screamed danger, but beneath it all, an unsettling calm settled like fog. And then, the whispers turned softer, more intimate. "Follow the light, come play." As the last syllable curled into the air, Mike's eyes caught sight of a faint glow beyond the playroom door, flickering as if inviting him into the unknown. Face scorching with dread, his mind raced. Would he succumb to the deceit, or could he find his daughter in the abyss that loomed ahead? With a breath thick with hesitation, he took a step toward the door. What lay on the other side? The light, or another trap woven by the darkness? The glow pulsed invitingly, a beacon of hope shrouded in the filth of despair. Mike hesitated, his heart pounding in his ears. It felt like the darkness itself was giving way, teasing him with the allure of what could lie beyond. Could Lucy truly be there? "Follow the light." The words slithered through the air, curling around his mind like smoke. Anxiety twisted in his gut. The shadows writhed around him, clinging to his body, pulling him back, whispering fear into his ear. "You'll never find her," they laughed, a cruel, haunting symphony that echoed in the emptiness of the room. Resolute, he stepped closer, plugging his ears to drown out their taunts. With every step, the shadows surged, screeching like a banshee, and the warmth of the light flickered ominously, almost mischievously. "Come play with us," a child's voice screeched, grating and familiar, but he forced his focus on the glow ahead. It glimmered, shifting and bobbing, like a candle in a storm. He had to reach it. He had to find Lucy. The walls began to groan, their timber straining as if protesting his resolve. The radiant light seemed alive, a dance of colors that pirouetted against the encroaching darkness. "Lucy!" he yelled again, the name a desperate prayer. "I'm coming." With the weight of the shadows pulling him back, he lunged forward. As he crossed the threshold, the air thickened like molasses, every inch forward a Herculean effort, but the glow enveloped him, an all-consuming warmth that pulsed with rhythmic tranquility. "Welcome to the game." The voice drifted into his mind, silky and comforting yet laced with danger. He shuddered, gripping his fists to steady himself. The light expanded, revealing a different room. This one was no playroom. It was a labyrinth of trapped souls, children suspended in frozen moments of joy and fear, eyes wide and hollow. Each child wore a smile too wide, too unnatural. It was grotesque in its beauty. "Lucy!" he called out, panic flooding his veins. Peering into the crowd of shadows, he searched their faces, hoping to spot her bright, innocent smile. But her absence turned his hope to ice. "Join us, Daddy!" The children danced in a circular motion, their feet gliding above the ground like feathers. "Play, play!" His pulse quickened as they twirled around him, the air crackling with jubilation. But beneath it, he felt something darker lurking, like the sudden chill of winter in a summer's breeze. The laughter shifted again, turning hollow. "Or lose her, what do you want from me?" he shouted. The desperation clawed at his throat. "Play our game." Mike, the sinister chorus dripped with malicious glee. "The simple you must choose. Leave and lose her forever, or stay and take the risk." He felt trapped, his mind spinning with the implications. What game? What risk? Every instinct begged him to flee, but Lucy's image rooted him, a golden thread in the tapestry of shadows. As the children danced, their movements jerky and unnatural, Mike's eyes darted around, seeking an exit or an answer. The glow pulsed brighter, forming a door behind the swirling mass of laughter. Was it a way out, or a trap? A child stepped forward, face pale and eyes wide. "You can't save her unless you join us." The words were full of promise and threat, a singular paradox that constricted his heart. His resolve wavered as the shadows swirled violently, their whispers morphing into howls of fury. The room distorted, its corners sinking into a swirling abyss. "Mike!" The voice echoed, laced with Lucy's fear, felt real, tangible. But was it a mirage crafted by the darkness? Struggling to breathe, he sensed the shadows closing in again, the cacophony rising higher. "Make your choice," they roared, their grip tightening around him. Time slowed, a ticking clock counting down his options. The light flickered, flickering his last chance. What would he gamble for his daughter? Would he risk it all, or let the darkness take her forever? Mike stood on the precipice of a choice, the game looming overhead like a storm cloud. His heart raced, and as he felt the shadows tightening, he knew whatever choice he made next would alter everything. The game, whatever it was, had only just begun. The house seemed to breathe as Mike stood on the edge of despair. Shadows twisted closer, pressing against him like 1,000 grasping hands, each one whispering his name in haunting whispers. "Choose," the chorus taunted, their voices bubbling with dark amusement. He could feel the heat rising inside his chest, a fierce determination igniting like a flame battling the night. "I won T, let you take her," he shouted, the echo bouncing off the warped walls. The laughter dipped slightly, and for a moment, he sensed hesitation in the air. Was it possible he could break their hold? The light pulsed brighter, a beacon that dared Mike to step into the unknown. His heart ached for Lucy, her image woven into the fabric of every breath he took. "I will save you," he cried, pushing past the shadows that clung like mist. The swirling darkness surged, coiling around his legs, but with his eyes locked on that glimmer of hope, he pressed forward as he crossed the threshold toward the light. A deafening silence filled the room. The children's laughter halted, leaving an unsettling void that echoed louder than their mirth ever had. Mike stumbled into the glow, and the moment he did, the universe itself seemed to shift as he stood in a vast, luminous space that felt both alien and familiar. It was an odd playground, brilliant and terrifying, filled with all the vibrancy of childhood, yet marred by a lurking shadow. Innocent laughter reverberated around him, and in the distance, he spotted her, the aching light he sought. "Lucy!" he shouted, racing toward her. The scene before him flickered, an illusion amplifying her presence and pain. But there she was, his daughter, standing untouched at the center of it all, her eyes wide with innocence yet betraying a flicker of fear. Around her, the other children twirled, caught in a beautiful yet grotesque dance. "They don't want to play, Lucy," Mike cried, urgency sharpening his voice. "They're lying." He felt the tug of the darker figures, knowing they were lurking just beyond the perimeter of the light. He sprinted, and the image of Lucy twisted in his vision just a moment longer, and he feared he would lose her completely. "They're my friends," Lucy called back, her voice clear yet distant. The echoes of their threats echoed in the darkness, reminding him of the stakes. "They want to play." "No," Mike shouted again, every ounce of his being desperate to reach her. "Lucy, they want to trap you." The shadows shrieked in indignation, thick tendrils reaching out, trying to curl around him. "Join us, Daddy," The voices sang sweetly, and he felt the nagging dread clawing back at his resolve. "Lucy, remember our game?" he pleaded. "The one where we always win." For a moment time froze. Her eyes searched his face, confusion twisting into clarity. "Daddy? I don't want to lose you," and there it was, the spark of recognition. Mike felt the shadows shrivel slightly. He had found a crack. "Stick with me. We're together. Always." The darkness recoiled, twisting and shuddering as if it fed on the disconnect. Mike dashed towards her, pushing against the creeping tendrils that grasped at him. Each step felt like wading through thick fog, every ounce of the night resisting his charge. "Come here," he growled, reaching out. "I'm going to pull you out of this mess." Finally, their hands clasped his strong, hers small. "I'm not letting go." The other children howled in rage. The darkness screamed, but Mike tightened his grip. Around them, the shadows whirled violently, a tempest of fury and disbelief. Just then, the light enveloped them completely, washing through every crevice of doubt, illuminating truth over deception. The shadows fought back, screaming a chorus of tortured wails, but Mike held fast. "Together," he shouted, pulling Lucy towards him with all his might. And then it happened. The light began to expand, an all-consuming brilliance shattering the shadows, bolting through the darkness like the sun-piercing storm clouds. Surrounded by a wall of light, the figures melted away, their screams swallowed whole. The playroom began to dissolve, shadows collapsing inward as the darkness fought to reclaim its lost prey. Mike could feel the intensity of their anguish, yet he surged forward, determined to carry Lucy beyond the brink they had neared. With a final push, they broke free into the world outside, gasping, trembling but alive, standing upon the porch of their old house in Maplewood. The storm of fear faded, leaving only wide-eyed relief as dawn broke above, painting the sky with shades of hope. "We made it," Mike gasped, pulling Lucy into a fierce hug, joy flooding him. "Where's Mommy?" Lucy breathed, her voice trembling. In that moment, Mike's heart sank again, dread creeping back as he looked around, searching desperately. "Emily," he called, panic rising once more. And there she was, stepping from the darkness, her eyes filled with warmth, relief pouring over her. "I found you, Mommy," Lucy squealed, running into her arms. The shadows receded, retreating into the remnants of the old house that no longer looked like a home, but a dark memory lost to time. Together, they stood, a family reunited, tethered by a bond forged in the heart of terror. But as they stepped away from the house, Mike heard one last whisper fluttering through the air. "You may have escaped, but the game is never truly over." With one final glance back, he felt something inside him stir, a creeping sensation that their story had only begun. "Let us go home," he said firmly, as they walked into the dawn, the warmth of the new day wrapping around them like a protective shield. And just at the edge of the trees, the laughter echoed one last time, a haunting reminder that shadows never truly disappear. But they were free, at least for now. Now that you've journeyed through the shadows with us, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Make your voice heard. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans of storytelling understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let us keep this journey alive.